Hi, everyone. This is Mrs. McBain and Flat Mrs. McBain of Fuji Apple Learning, presenting the Deer of Ocean Shores. I know what you are thinking, Flat Me. What is so special about the deer in ocean shores? There are tons of them, and they're everywhere. The fact of the matter is that the deer in ocean shores are unique, maybe not in their species, but in their behavior. Let's learn more. There are 4 species of deer in Washington: Rocky Mountain mule deer, Columbian black-tailed deer, white-tailed deer, and Columbian white-tailed deer. So, what species of deer do we have here in ocean shores? Let's take a look at this doe. It seems that many of the deer species are identified by looking at the coloring of their tails. Looks like Flatme is pointing it out for us. This doe is a Columbian black-tailed deer, and this picture was taken right here in ocean shores. The Columbian black-tailed deer are the most common species in Washington. They can be found from the Cascades all the way to the ocean. They like brushy areas and conifer forests. Their tail is broad at the top and is dark brown or black in color with a white underside. Adult bucks can weigh 140 to 200 pounds, and a doe weighs 90 to 130 pounds. If they're the most common species in Washington, I bet you are wondering what makes the deer in ocean shores so unique. It is actually the history of ocean shores that makes the deer so unique. Yes, that's right. The history of this peninsula is what changed the deer and made them so different than any other deer in the state. You see, long before Ocean Shores was a town, many local tribes, such as the Chehalis, Chinook, and others that would become part of the Confederated Tribes of the Quinault Indian Nation, used the peninsula for everything from trading to having permanent encampments. Although there were deer here at the time, these tribes were here primarily for fishing and gathering, so they were not really a threat to the deer. In 1792, Captain Robert Gray sailed into what is now called Gray's Harbor, and that is when things really started to make a change for the deer and make them even more unique. In the 1860s, Matthew McGee settled on the peninsula and then sold a portion of the area to A.O. Damon in 1878, who used the area as a trading supply center with a massive dock that went out into the Oyat Channel. Then Damon took over the rest of the peninsula from McGee and passed it off to his grandson, Ralph Menard. Menard turned the peninsula into a cattle ranch in 1929. As you might imagine, Mr. Menard wouldn't have wanted bear, cougar, or other predators on the peninsula with his cows, and he was doing what he could to protect them. That also meant that the deer living here were not only being protected from predators, but they were also getting really used to being around people. Then, in 1960, Mr. Menard sold the peninsula to the Ocean Shores Development Corporations for $1 million. There was a lot going on at the time, and decisions and discussions of building a huge casino and creating a California-style development were taking place. There was an airport across the street from where the subway is today, and a 6-hole golf course. A ship called the SS Katala was brought in as a floating hotel, and the whole area was like a big playground for the rich and famous. All of those visitors and work crews building the homes and businesses, they kind of kept all the predators away, and the deer population began to explode, and they became even more used to being around people. At the end of the 1960s, the city of Ocean Shores was really something, and the first school was opened in 1971. But it wouldn't stay like that forever, and eventually the town settled down and became the Ocean Shores that we know and love today. So what does all of that have to do with the deer? Well, from the time that Mr. McGee settled on the peninsula in the 1860s, And even before then, to some extent with the tribes, the deer have been unintentionally protected from predators by people who live there. And that is about 160 years of deer generations living on a peninsula with people and without many predators. That is what makes our deer extremely unique. You see, wild deer in other places don't just walk up on your porch like they do here. They avoid people if they can. Our deer are so used to people that some people have even been spotted petting them. That is what is so unique about them. You may not realize it, but when you are outside on the playground or playing in your neighborhood and the deer are right there with you, that's not normal deer behavior. And it's a really cool thing. However, no matter how cool it is, remember that the deer are still wild animals. And even though ours act more like pet goats, they can still harm people and our pets. I know what you are thinking. It's all of that headgear that the bucks have that make them dangerous. Although the antlers are a bit dangerous, they are not the real danger. Deer have something far sharper than antlers and are skilled at using them. See those hooves? Those hooves are not just for running on. Deer use those sharp hooves to defend themselves and their fawns. Deer hooves are sharp and their legs are powerful. You don't want to get kicked or pounced on by those hooves. About 120 people die every year from deer. So even though the deer in ocean shores often act more like domestic goats than wild animals, we need to make sure that we treat them with respect and give them the space that they need. Thank you for watching The Deer of Ocean Shores.